this dude brings around heroin, and we didn't, I mean, I guess you hear the name heroin and it sounds terrifying, just like meth sounds terrifying, just like crack sounds scary, but it'd never been in front of me. And by this point, so many other things had kind of, the door was just opened a little bit more. It was like, it's not
a big
that
deal.
Yeah, it wasn't that crazy at that point. Like, so yeah, I get really heavy into that, and I was telling you, everyone was like, "Oh, it's Red Rock opium, it's opium," and opium sounds so much cooler,
way better.
Yeah, and
not a big deal. It's red opium.
That's the first time I've ever heard.
You never heard anyone say that before?
No, but I wasn't an opiate user like you guys.
Okay. All right. Oh, my
I like
bad.
to be up. When she said I like down, I was like, no, I like to be up.
You like to be up. That's why you be back to back in them coffees every day, all day long, them energy drinks.
Yep. Well, I don't do energy drinks anymore.
Oh, you don't? You quit?
Just
My
coffee.
Bad. Did you work the steps through those energy drinks?
I don't know. I just can't do energy drinks
Okay, my
anymore.
bad.
I get weird.
And so, really you're doing heroin, but they're calling it, and I've came across that so many times. I've actually told people that it was Red Rock opium, knowing damn well that it was heroin. So I totally get that.
Sales pitch.
And it sounds
Smart.
much better, but the truth is now once we get, dependent on heroin, the way it hijacks our brain and the pleasure center and the neural pathways and transmitters get crossed, then we start crossing into physical addiction. And so, did the consequences start to pile up on you? Because you start doing heroin, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So within 6 months of what had happened after I graduated, and I think it's important for me to say that I don't think it was like a direct result of that. I think I was on my way.
Right.
I think it was just bound to happen. The way that things had been going for me, that was what was next. And that just made me a little bit more fearless, a little bit more reckless,
Right.
And take that tiny little ounce of like self-worth or whatever you want to call it, like, self-love. I don't know if that's even like a proper term for it, but it was gone. It was completely shot. And so I was just latching onto anything I could. And it was this guy, and it was these friends, and it was these pills, and then it was heroin. And so when I started doing that, I just remember like, it was like nothing. It's so weird. The feeling like almost makes me cry. It was like nothing I had ever experienced before. And so in a way it like felt like what I had always been searching for, and like what I needed, and like what was going to heal all this pain. And so yeah, within like 6 months, I'm like full blown. And I just got into it was just bad. The first time I got arrested and charged after that thing when I was 15 or 16, I was 19 or 20 years old, and it was like nighttime. I was on Scottsdale Road, and like Rio Salado. I was up working in Scottsdale, and I got pulled over, and it was a drug DUI, and my whole car smelled like weed. My eyes were cashed, and it was so stupid. I had just gotten food, and I was like driving, and I was trying to like reach in to grab my cheese fries. And the light was red, and I was like looking at the other light turn yellow and red. And so I was like, in my mind, I'm like anticipating the green light, and this cop, this black Tahoe behind me, pulls me over, and he said I ran a red light. And I was like, that's such bullshit, but here we are. And so I ended up getting arrested just for the DUI. And so they're like, we're going to take you down to, wherever the fuck they took me. It was like a trailer where they did my arrest. And they said, but you're going to be able to leave from there. So do you want me to grab your stuff? Fuck.
Yeah, I don't know if you want to go through my stuff.
Yeah, and I didn't know what I was up against.
Yeah.
Like I didn't really deal with shit like that, And I'm like, sure. And in my mind, I'm like, he has to do what I say. He can only go, this far. My rights.
You just gave him permission to get in your
need a
vehicle.
warrant for that.
Yeah. And so he searches my whole car and finds this like trashy, those like big pill bottles, the big plastic ones that are just obscenely huge.
Right.
And there's no label on it. And there's just like a giant ball of like nasty black tar heroin in it. They didn't find the scale, which it was like,
thank God.
I know, right underneath it. And so yeah, I got charged. It was possession of, I think it was dangerous drug. Is narcotic.
Yeah, possession of
narcotic. Yeah, and I remember
Class 4 felony.
Mm-hmm.
Jason knows.
Yeah, And so if they would have found that scale, that would have turned that
Oh, yeah, it
into a
would've been-
class 2 felony, and that really escalates the
Right.
situation.
Yeah. So they charged me for the heroin, the container that it was in. And then when you get a DUI, you get 2 DUIs, and they just kind of like hit you with as
Right.
much as you can so something sticks. And then, I got released that night. Someone came and picked me up, and I remember just going home and being like, fuck.
Like, this is getting bad.
Yeah, I was like, this is not me. And then, just, I don't know, you can imagine what the next couple of years looked like. And I just kept violating probation. And I had a case manager that suggested methadone because she said heroin addicts never finish probation. And it was like when all this stuff was starting with the medical marijuana cards. So I got that too. I'm like, literally, like taking methadone every day. I'm like able to smoke weed every day, and I still just cannot stop getting high. Like, I didn't even want my methadone. I would save it for when I didn't
When
have
you were sick.
Yeah.
heroin. Yeah.
You
or
had
I'd
them-
sell
did
it.
you
My
have them
sister
take
does
homes?
that right now.
You have the take homes?
I could only get one though because I couldn't stop doing Xanax.
Yeah, so every time they'd give you that weekly UA, you'd fail for Xanax,
Yeah.
so you never got your take homes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I always had just enough on stock, you
Yeah,
know,
we got a little bit.
for a rainy day.
Yeah,
That's
we'll be
funny.
all right.
Yeah.
And so, now we're talking about being on probation with a drug habit. So we got multiple
Right.
violations. We're in and out of jail. We're in and out of the tents. I mean, we talk about work release. We're going
Yeah.
through all the stages of the consequences that are ultimately leading. I mean, you totaled 5 cars.
By the
Like-
time I was done, I got another DUI in like 2013 or something when I was on probation still. And all they did really was kick me off task and put me on supervised probation.
Oh, you're on unsupervised to start.
Yeah, which was way easier because I only had to see my probation officer once a month, and it was scheduled. So I knew
Right.
I needed to stop
I need to
getting
clean up a little
high
bit.
like three days or so, before, and I would go in and yeah. So that second one though, the second DUI, I was on probation. I hit an off-duty cop.
Ooh.
Yeah, I totaled his car. It
Dang
was
it.
like his prized off-duty vehicle.
Uh-oh.
And and I'm like drunk and I'm on Xanax and stuff. And I get out of the car and I'm like, I have money. Like, we don't need to call the
Yeah,
police.
don't worry, I
we
can
don't
fix
need
it."
to call insurance. I'll pay for it.
You ever
he
done
never
that?
says a word to me.
You ever done that, Haley? You ever jumped out the car and said, "Oh, don't worry, we got money.
Okay,
Don't
so
need
there
to call."
was one time, and I was sober when this happened, so this is sad. But okay, so I was pulling, like my radiator had cracked, and it was like smoking, and I'm trying to get off the road, and I like turned, and I hit a guy, like a tweaker on a bike, and like drug him in my Suburban, like under my Suburban. He had like road rash. And I was like, bro, please, I don't have insurance. I was like, I have a pack of cigarettes and $20. And he took it and ran off.
When you're an addict, that's all you want
I
is
know,
a
but
pack
I'm
of cigarettes and
surprised. I was
20
like, I didn't
bucks.
when I said I didn't have
a good
insurance,
day.
he knew he wasn't going to get any money from me. So he just took off. I was like, here's half a pack of cigarettes. and
Thank you, God.
$20.
Yeah.
It was kind of
Jackpot.
I was super sober when that happened too. That's embarrassing. But I was panicking. It was smoking. I just had to get off the road.
And so now we're talking about multiple DUIs. We're talking
Right.
about being on probation. We're talking about in and out of county jail.
Split my face open.
Yeah, we're
See
talking.
it here. I got 15 stitches through my eyebrows.
Oh yeah, now that you pointed out, I can see this.
Yeah, I could barely see it, but yeah. So now we're talking about physical injuries. I mean, and ultimately everything is what it's leading to is a prison sentence.
Right.
And so once they start throwing prison sentence numbers around, I mean, I remember when I went to prison the first time and I was like, dude, what years? Like, what do we even what? 3.5
Yeah.
years? That shit didn't even get my attention.
Right.
Then I caught an 8-year prison sentence, and that right there got a hold of me, but I didn't even stay sober in the beginning of that sentence either.
Yeah, it took a while.
Yeah, I mean, as addicts and alcoholics, man, the pain threshold that we have is just unreal. And, when I look around the rooms, when I look at the people who've actually found like real recovery or moved the
Right.
obsession to want to change the way they feel and continue to maintain it by the non-negotiables of their recovery, dude, we're all like
Right.
over 30. There's not really too many youngsters. I mean,
Right.
that maybe that's just me, but I'm just saying what I see, and because we got to go through that pain. And so now you're starting, Tesleah, now you're starting to see that this shit might end in prison, and we don't want that. Haley.
I've never been to prison.
I know
so
you haven't been
I
to
don't
prison. I know.
I'm sorry.
Thank God, you know?
Yeah.
Thank God for you.
I would definitely not make it.
Both of you guys. You don't want to live that life.
No.
And so that you kind of, the fear of going to prison kind of sobers you up for a period of time, and you go through like this. You're still using though, but you go through like 2 years of just like sadness.
Yeah. Yeah, it was terrifying when they told me that, because that time, the second time, I had paid for a lawyer, because I was scared. Like, everyone was like, you can't fuck around with that second one. And
Right.
I still had the charges, and there was like, you were saying it was like Mesa, Scottsdale, Tempe. It was like all these different, and then the violations and the reinstatements. And then it was just a fucking mess. And so when they started telling me that I was going to be, if I got in trouble again, you know, I was going to be facing prison, and I was already on supervised probation fucking up there. You know, I was like, they were talking about drug court, and it just got super scary. And that's when it was kind of starting to hit me. Those were around the first times that I actually tried to, I don't want to say get sober, because if I'm being honest, I don't think I was ever planning on being sober like the way I am now.
Right.
But I knew I needed to
Dry out.
to chill. Yeah. I was like, I have to stop doing heroin. Like, I cannot keep doing heroin. I can't do Xanax. I'm going to have to just learn how to, you know, chill and just drink, like, you know,
without consequences.
Yeah. It was like, there was never, like, I better stop doing everything. And I was just like, this is going to end bad. And when I was younger, one of my uncles had gone to prison, and I just remember he was gone for a while. I can't even tell you now how many years it was, but he came back, and I just remember like him missing that big gap of his life. And he came back, and I was, you know, older, and I had friends that had gone and stuff. And I was just like, I can't fucking do that.
Yeah, I'm not doing that.
Yeah. And some part of me, like, I knew that, not to say that anyone has been to prison, like, deserves to be there or is there because they should be, like, I should probably be in prison. But I just knew that I was like better than that. I was like, what the fuck happened? Like,
Yeah.
you know, how, and I keep starting to try to piece it together, and I get really serious. I'm like, I have to finish probation. I have to get off, because if I get in trouble again, I'm done. And I had some family that helped me kind of like pay off my fines, and I did all my classes and finished all the shit that I'd been procrastinating and needed to do. I learned to stay home. I started taking Ubers. I stopped driving. That was the lesson I learned. It wasn't like, I couldn't stop completely, but I was like, okay, at least I'll stop driving.
Yeah, I'm not going to drive anymore. I'll tell you
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Like, fuck. And so, yeah, the last year and a half or two, I'd say year and a half probably was just sad. I was like, you know, I couldn't even afford an apartment anymore. A lot of the few like friends or whatever that I had were just gone, and it was just really scummy people I was still associating with. And I was like in the room at my grandparents' house, just getting high, getting high with my boyfriend or whoever was with me at the time. And that was pretty much it. Stay up all night, sleep all day. And that was it. And then, I was about to turn 26, and my mom had told me, like, we didn't know anything about mental health.
Right.
You know, there's pictures of me when I was little, and, you know, I'm like this cute little girl, and I had scabs. Like, I would pick at my face from a super young age. And we always thought it was like, you know, allergies or something. That's what my grandparents would call it. Little did we know, like, now knowing what I know, like, I should have seen a psychologist. But yeah, so I had anxiety from like a very young age, and my mom's diagnosed bipolar, and we just didn't know anything about mental health.
Right.
You know, we didn't know, like, we had an idea of what addiction was, but even then, like, me compared to my uncles and my mom, like, I don't know. It was a different form. It was like a different level of addiction for me, I think. And so yeah, she told me, I don't know what you need to do or how you would go about it, but you're on my insurance until you're 26. So you should probably
You might want to take
figure
advantage of
something
that.
out.
You might want to take advantage of that.
Yeah, and it was kind of like perfect timing the way things lined up. Like, there were the two guys that I went back and forth with forever, and one went to treatment, the other one went to prison, and I was just kind of left on my own. And yeah, so I ended up being like, okay, I'm going to try it. I've never been before, you know, I've never done anything like that. I didn't think it worked. I had so many friends that would go to treatment and come back, and, you know, the day they were out, we were like getting high again.
Right.
So yeah, I was just like, whatever, fuck it. What do I have to lose at this point? And so I went and I stayed as long as my insurance would let me. I tried to leave 3 times just in the few weeks that I was there. I started refusing the medications that they gave me to come down off all the drugs I was on after a couple of days, because I got this this thing in my mind that's like, I have to be completely drug free and I can't take a single medication ever again. And they're like, the doctor's like, how did being your own doctor work out for you in the past? And I'm like, fuck off. Like, I don't want anything else. And so they're like, okay. I'm like, I just want half the dose. They're like, not how it works.
That's
right.
not how it works,
Yeah. They're like, you either take the whole, you take what we prescribe you or you refuse it. And so, I was on like a Suboxone taper and, whatever, Ativan or something for the Xanax I was coming off. And so a few days in, I just start refusing everything. I got so sick. Never been that sick in my life.
It's never a good idea to do that.
No, it's terrible.
Yeah, it's never a good idea. So you show up at the River Source and you're there for about 25 days and, it's your first real experience. They're heavily into the 12-step, which is our path of recovery, all of ours. And, the big book does say, be quick to see where doctors and physicians are right. And utilize them as we can. And so from there, you graduate, you're there as long as your insurance will allow you to be there. And, you transfer into sober living. You went to the Sparrow House, shout out Sparrow House. And all the ladies, is still open?
Yeah.
Oh, big shout out to them.
Yeah,
all right.
I remember they came to my treatment center to try to sell us like their program.
Oh, they did?
Yeah.
Yeah, you didn't go?
No, I went to Mandalay.
Oh, Mandalay. Shout out Mandalay. I mean, we're shouting them all out.
I had to have co-ed. I was in a facility with women for 90 days.
God.
I had to have co-ed.
See, when I went to River Source, it was it's different now, but it was in Mesa, which that location is like a completely different center now. I can't remember the name of it, but it was all women's, thank God. Like, that is what I needed. Yes. Everything that I had been through up to that point, there was just, it was very perfect the way it worked out. And so, yeah, I stayed as long as my insurance would let me. And I remember they advocated really hard for me, and the last time that I wanted to leave, there was this woman, and now I find out she was like, the insurance lady or like the utilization review lady or whatever. And she saw me outside, and I was still so sick after, it was like 14, 15 days it took me to finally stop like sweating through my clothes at night and shaking, and I could finally start eating. And they were pulling me into the doctor's office asking me if I had an eating disorder because I couldn't eat. I was like just dropping weight. When I went in, I was already so small too.
Right.
And so she sees me, and I'm outside with like my 2 blankets on, in like April, and I'm just like chain smoking, and she talks to me, and she was like, what's going on? I'm like, it's fine. And by this point, I was kind of like the girl who cried wolf. Like I threatened to leave a couple times before that.
Right.
And when you say that you want to leave treatment, like a whole squad of people are like, but what about this? And like, did you think about this? And look how far you've come. And so this time I'm like intent. I'm serious about it. I'm like, I'm just so sick. It was really the physical part that was like taking over. And I just, when you're a drug addict, like, what will solve it.
Right.
And it was just so hard because I was like on this fence because I was so fucking scared to go back to what I knew. But I was like almost more afraid to try to do something I didn't know what was going to come, and I couldn't figure out what I was more afraid of. And so this woman on that day, I owe her a lot of credit. Her name was Angie. But she convinced me somehow to call my mom, which by that point, my family thought I was doing good. Like I couldn't disappoint them. I couldn't let them know what was really going on. And so I call my mom, and, we have this like long talk or whatever. And she's like, you're Hispanic. You come from a line of strong women who've overcome this, and you're going to overcome this, and da-da-da-da. And again, like I said, I think that my level of addiction was a lot different than anyone in my family.
Sure.
But to the normal person, it makes sense. You just have to be strong. You just have to be smart. You just have to make right decisions.
Get your willpower back.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I'm like, fuck yeah. Okay, I can do this. I'm going to do this. Just a few more days here. I'm going to leave to California as soon as I get out of here. Like, and so something hits me, and this was like a turning point in all of this, my entire recovery. So I remember I was in like the intake office because I was trying to get them to give me my paperwork to leave. And And then it's not that they wouldn't give it to me. They were like holding off. They were stalling as long as they could. And so they're like, okay, she can talk to her mom. So after I get off the phone, I remember I had like worked myself up into this panic. My back was just so sore. I was like sweating. I was crying. I was like hyperventilating. And my mom had calmed me down by the end of the conversation. And then I sat there and something just like didn't sit right. And I was just like, I don't even know how else to explain it. I was just troubled. And I was like, sitting there and it was so strange. And I had this like thought come to me that something she was saying was off, you know? And I think that by that point I had learned enough and like listened enough, even though I wasn't intently listening, the things that they were starting to say when I was in there, because they were very serious about 12 steps from the start. They introduced us to, you know, step 10 when we started, and then flipped us back to the beginning, and we start talking about powerlessness. And I had this like crazy step 1 experience. And yeah, so I remembered some of the things that they were saying, and it just didn't sit right. And I was like, that's wrong. I was like, this is going to lead me back. Like, I don't know if those were the words I was really pulling together, but that's what it felt like. And so I called this woman who I'd asked to be my sponsor. It was just a name on a list. And the reason I called her was because she came in and spoke. And I didn't remember anything that she said, anything about like recovery or solution. But I know that she said, who falls in love with a heroin addict? Me. And I was like, oh, she's funny. Like I do that, you know? And so her name was Brooke. And so she was my first sponsor, and she just kept it real with me. And I called her and I explained what was going on and stuff. And she said something to the effect of, you have to learn to trust God, whatever that is for you, more than you trust yourself, more than you trust your own mom, more than you trust your own grandparents. And I had no fucking idea what God was. And by then, like, you know, in my mind, I've been through so much, and like, how could God be real? And so she just kept talking to me, and, you know, she was like, you've come pretty far, you know? She's like, do you know, like, why are you still there right now? She's like, I thought you said you wanted to leave. Why are you still there? And I was like, I don't know. And I couldn't figure it out. And it was just so weird. It was like this feeling that I had never felt before. And I almost feel like it was a little bit of hope. And after that, everything fucking changed. And so after that, I start like paying attention, and I start listening to the readings, and I'm like listening to what the speakers are saying. And I remember like another girl came in. Thank God for H&I.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So this other girl comes in. Her name was Erin. I knew her. I'd been to jail with her. I like ran around with her years before that. And she comes in and she's 18 months sober. And I was like, things were like just
Visual
starting to
proof.
be thrown at me. Yeah. I was like, what the fuck? Yeah. I was like, I actually know this girl. Like, she's not a paid actor, you know, she's not a therapist. Like, I knew her. I got high with her, and she was, it's like in the book, different person, visibly different. Like there was no question. Like, you couldn't be hiding your addiction and look like this girl.
Right.
And yeah, so it was just a major turning point. And that's when I really started, they were like, you know, kept telling me about my steps and the 12 steps and stuff. And I was like, let's fucking do it. And so I did. And I got to my 3rd step in there. And then they told us to start on our 4th step. They said, sometimes it can get a little heavy. We suggest you start here. They talked to us about sober living. The reason that I chose that particular sober living program is because, the other one I was looking at, all the houses were right next to my area, like where I grew up and where I ran around. And I needed to I couldn't take any chances. And so yeah, I did that. I did outpatient with them, with River Source, as suggested. And yeah, I moved into sober living. I stayed about 4 months. We had like a mishap happen. I think the 2nd week I was in there, and I ended up being put in charge of the 2nd house that they were going to open. They made me a house manager.
Nice.
Yeah.
Shout out to all the house managers.
Hell yeah.
Shout out to the house managers. We got a lot of house managers that work for us, as a matter of fact.
Yeah.
And so you're at, you go from Rivers, but you're following the suggestions, and just like everything we do here, the same thing you guys do at Pinnacle. You go to detox, you go to residential, and then you go to IOP, then you go to sober living, and you're doing everything in the right stepping stone. You're working AA, CA, you're working CODA, you're working the steps. You got a sponsor.
Right.
You're doing everything that you're supposed to do, and life starts to to start to work out for you. You know, it says in the third step, being all powerful, he provided what we needed if we kept close to him, performed his work well. His work for us is to do the next right thing.
Right.
That's his work for us, to be loving and sober and honest and tolerant, forgiving, and you know, be a good, you know, husband and father and son in my case, you know. And so it's just like, when I do those things, everything else tends to work out in my life, and everything starts to work out in your life. And you know, you find a passion for working in recovery.
Yep.
We don't have time to talk about the telemarketing thing, because everybody who knows me, I can go off on a sick one about telemarketing, but it's the same experience that you had, right? Like, we're trying to live by these spiritual principles, but I go to work and I lie, cheat, manipulate, steal.
It was the worst time and worst experience in my sobriety. I felt so guilty and just
it don't work.
Every day I was crying.
It doesn't check out. And so finally you decide that you want to pursue this passion and give back. Just like H&I came in, and everything that did for you, others did for you. Now you want to give back. And so you find yourself working for Pinnacle, and you start working Pinnacle. And what was that like when you walked in the doors over there?
So it was really cool. It was just kind of like a natural transition for me, because I couldn't wait to start working with people once I finished, you know, my steps, and I was able to start sponsoring, and I just had like a huge passion for it. And I'm not shy. I'm like pretty much an open book, and I love talking with people. And there's just like such a special place in my heart for people that have experienced those depths of addiction that I have.
Right.
And so, like you said, I was like working in this phone room, and it was just not what I wanted to continue to do. And I was like making some money early on, which was cool, because I paid for sober living. I had some financial independence and stuff, and things started getting weird for me around like 6-9 months sober, and I'm starting to like act out in some of my old behaviors. And you know, in the beginning, I was like, I'm going to do everything right. I'm not going to lie.
Right.
I'm not going to cheat. I'm like, you know, I'm not going to date. Like, I was going to take all the suggestions. Slowly, after a few months, like, you get comfortable. Thank God, like, I never stopped working with people. I never stopped working my steps.
Right.
I've always gone to meetings. I think that's what has like really saved my ass.
It's the foundation.
Exactly.
Yeah. And so I just continued to try to keep growing, and I have a pretty good like self barometer, and I can feel when things are starting to feel off. And so this opportunity, you know, became a thing from a friend of mine, and he was like, hey, like, I do admissions for this treatment center. And I'm like, oh, admissions, like, you know, what do you do? And he tells me that you're basically just talking to people on the phone, people that are reaching out for help, and you're trying to help them get connected with services. And so I'm like, okay, cool. I went to treatment, changed my life.
Yeah. Right. I'd love to help people have my experience.
Yeah. I'm like, I'm all for it. I was, you know, I found out that I'm a good talker. Like, I'm good on the phone.
I could do this.
I can do this. If I can get people to tell me how much is in their 401k and who they bank with, like, I can get.
If I can get a social in a 3.5 minute phone call, I'm sure I can get someone's birth date to get them into treatment.
Listen, sometimes
can get the insurance.
Sometimes it is really hard to talk to some of the clients that call in.
Yeah.
When I look over all my sales experience, I think that it just gave me the training to be able to relate and to share my message with others. And so you start working admissions at Pinnacle, and you know, you decide you want to go back to school, so you take a break, you go back to school, but you're working a program this whole entire time, and that's the most important part. Service commitments, have some people in the book, have a sponsor, and go to as many meetings as you can go to that fits into your schedule. And you're doing this, and you know, and throughout this period of time, you know, you always still have this passion. You know, you're thinking about becoming a therapist, you're pursuing a psych degree, and you know, you're doing all these things, but ultimately COVID happens. I mean, you also had another traumatic event in 2019.
So I got pregnant in the end of 2019, and then I had a miscarriage in early 2020. And it was the end of March. So it was right when I turned 4 years sober. It was right when COVID happened. It was like everything was locked down. I was working in a restaurant and going to school, so I was scared. I like quit my job. I'm like, oh my God, my life's changing. I have this baby to take care of. And then I found out, you know, we went in, and there was no more heartbeat around, I think it was 9 or 10 weeks. I was like I thought I was 11 or 12 weeks along at that point. And so it just hit me really hard. And so anyone that's experienced something really hard in the middle of this pandemic, you know, especially the beginning of it when everything was just
It was so crazy.
unknown and unpredictable. Yeah. And it was just so freaky. And everything, like the news and everything, just scares you so bad, you know? And so I didn't know what I was up against. And I was like basically locked in my apartment, you know, and I like had to take a break from school. I was just so depressed. And then my grandma had passed shortly before that too. So that year, 2020 was just, it was a doozy.
Yeah,
it was a rough
like
one
that for a lot of
yeah,
us.
Yeah. And then Chris and Tyler, the owners of Pinnacle, they're really good friends to me and my boyfriend still, and through all.
Yeah, shout out Zach. Let's just shout him out.
Shout out
Let's
to
not
Zach.
forget Zach. Let's shout that.
How could you forget Zach?
Yeah, we're not forgetting about him. We just want to make sure that he knows we're thinking about him. So shout out to Zach. And so ultimately, man, you get a call, you know, from them and you find yourself back in 2020 at Pinnacle Peak. And that's, I mean, first off, your sobriety date is 3/30/2016. I mean, big shout out to you. That's what recovery looks like. Finding lasting recovery, dude, is just, we all know the odds and we're all miracles sitting at this table.
Exactly.
And so you come back to Pinnacle, you start out as admissions, you work your way to admissions director, business development, and here we are present day. You know, just like your evolution, same thing with mine. I started out as a weekend BHT into everything that I do now. It's because we work a solid program that carries over into every single aspect of we're employable, we show up, we work hard, we're relatable, we don't steal anymore from the company, right? Like all these things lead us and give us the ability to, you know, progress in all the areas of our life, including here at work. And it's the same thing with you. And so you should be super proud of that, just like we all are. And so why don't you talk a little bit now? We'll kind of close up the show, the episode, and talk about where you're at Pinnacle Peak Recovery, what you guys got going on there, where they could find you. I mean, let's not forget, like I said, all areas of your life. You know, you're pregnant again. Shout out. Congratulations.
I'm so excited.
You and Zach. I mean, here we go. You have a son, right? What's his name?
Kyler.
Just
he is literally the cutest baby. Tesleah sends me pictures all the time.
I mean, I got a 5-month-old. So I mean, you got the 1-year-old. You guys are buying a house. You're in a solid relationship. You're pregnant again. You have a high level position at work. You enjoy what you do, but you still go to meetings and you still have women in the book and you still do everything that you need to do, and your life reflects that today. So let's talk about now. Let's take the last few minutes of the episode to really talk about Pinnacle, where they could find you, your phone numbers, your social media. Let's hear about all that, and we'll kind of close up the show.
Yeah. So it's actually really cool. It's kind of a fun story. Since I started with Pinnacle early on, left for a bit, like you said, went back to school, did some other things, and then came back. I've just seen it evolve from the very start. I've stayed very close to it. I'm good friends with the owners, with, you know, their wives, and they're, you know, in recovery too. And so they're just really good people. And we've got like this tight kind of like family vibe going on. And they've always been there through all of it too, you know, which has been super cool. So yeah, we started out and things were a little bit different. We were, getting into levels of care here a little bit. We were a PHP with housing program. We were completely out of network. We had a couple of houses. Like our clients didn't really leave the property too much. They would come to us.
When it,
in
like 2018 when it was PHP housing.
Yeah. So. Yeah, so we stayed that way for the first couple of years. And, you know, when I was on the phone and I would talk to people, I was very passionate about it. And I would stay on the phone with these people for an hour, hour and a half, 2 hours. Sometimes we're like laughing, we're crying. I'm talking to probation officers. I'm talking to family. And, you know, so it was cool. But they would come, they'd stay for 90 days. There was like really not much in between it. It was like almost, I feel like it was more of like kind of like a one size fits all. Like, this is what you need to do. And that was just kind of how the industry was at the time, you know, and there's these places that are like these beautiful, you know, like out of network type of places. And then you've got like your kind of standard, you know, substance use primary places, kind of like the one that I went to, you know, where the focus was on 12 steps, which is exactly what I needed. But there's a lot of people in the middle that kind of fall somewhere between the mental health and the addiction stuff. And so that's what dual diagnosis treatment is for. And so it's just kind of evolved over the years. And as it has, we've just tried to keep up with it. So we eventually added residential. So we were residential, PHP, we added IOP. And then like as its own level of care, because before you could only do that if you came for PHP, you know? So we just try to evolve and as things have progressed, you know, over the years, we added medical detox last year on site. So in the past we would have to kind of like set someone up for detox somewhere else and then arrange for them to come back. Yeah. And it's just, you know, it can get kind of sticky. It can be kind of difficult because you're trying to help the person as best you can. You're talking to someone like me who's just a fucking disaster, you know, and then you're like, this is the plan. You're going to go here, 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 and do this. And you're just like, oh, and after 4 days, if you're anything like me, I'm like, never mind, I'm good. Like I'm good. Out. Yeah.
I need to get a job.
Yeah. Totally.
That sounds better.
Yeah. I need some money. And so yeah, it was just cool. Like we added residential, then we added detox. We've also started going in network with all the different major insurance companies. So currently there's only 2 major insurance companies that we're out of network with. And we're working on those. So it's been just super cool to watch it unfold. The vision that the owners had was to be kind of like a middle ground. In my mind, this is my philosophy, is a true co-occurring program where we do really well with people that struggle with not just addiction, but the underlying causes, the things that kind of
mental health
keep
aspect
you,
the
trauma, which I had, you know, a good deal of. The anxiety, the depression, bipolar. And so we're careful there. You know, we have our limitations. We are a substance use primary program. So the cool thing is that we're able to help a lot. And then if we get someone that seems like they may be requiring like more stabilization, psychiatric stabilization or something like that first, that's where my position kind of comes in. And we work with, you know, different level 1 psych hospitals or mental health primary programs in the area, out of state. And so it's really like a cohesive community style thing that we have going now, which is different than it was a few years ago. And yeah, so we've got detox, we've got residential, we've got 5-day PHP, we've got 5-day IOP. We even have a 3-day evening IOP. That is,
that's great.
It's super cool because not everyone starts out me coming into treatment. Some people have had some time in recovery and they relapsed and they need to get like
they have a job and their family back and
you
it's
get
kind of hard
reconnected to the fundamentals.
Exactly.
So you guys at Pinnacle, man, you guys got, you know, just like we're continuously adding and evolving to all the levels of care and all the proper stepping stones. The same thing we're doing here at Sanctuary, man. You guys got it going on over there.
Well, that's why we work so closely with Pinnacle because, you know, our visions align with each other.
Real similar. And so if anyone wants to reach out to you and get in touch with Pinnacle or get in touch with you and wants some resources or wants to get into your program, where can they find you at?
So I'm around, I'm in the community every day, but, my phone number is 480-389-8595. My email address, my name is spelled a little bit weird, but it's Tesleah C at Pinnacle Peak Recovery. We have an admissions line, 24 hours, you know, it's up until 9:00 is when we're actually taking the full blown conversation calls. After that, we'll take a message and call back first thing in the morning. But I'm super involved in the community and you see me out everywhere. Not so much now, you're kind of back and forth, but yeah, we've also got like sober living and, you know, we have a newer integrated care clinic too. So we do some outpatient psych and medical services where we can actually service the Medicaid community there too, which is different for us. So yeah, I've got a couple of different phone numbers.
I gotta shout out your guys' TikTok.
Oh yeah, hey, their TikTok's off the chain.
It's really funny.
Yeah, you guys
it's
do.
Pinnacle Peak, Pinnacle Peak Recovery on TikTok. It is great.
No, their
so
TikTok, I do follow them on TikTok, and I think their videos are excellent.
It's so funny.
There's a lot of you guys that are putting some time and effort into it, so it's just
we wanted it to be fun,
you
know,
fun.
and it's
something
like
to do while you're at work,
Coming into this, I want to be real and I want to share what's on my heart, but I'm a professional, right? Like I don't, when I first got sober, it was like everyone had to know I'm in recovery, and everyone,
Right.
and if someone asks me, I don't mind telling them. And like I said, I'm an open book, but I'm at a different point in my life now, and
Right.
and I've got self-worth, and I don't have to explain myself and be like, oh, it's because I'm in recovery, like I'm changed,
Right.
It's like I know internally who I am, and so I like to try to just keep it professional, and we all do, and it's funny because we all have our backgrounds, and we all come together, and now we're like managers, and we're like, we're in like collared shirts. And with the TikTok, we just wanted it to have that, but we wanted it to be fun. We wanted it to be like recovery oriented for the sober community, and so there
relatable,
are some
funny topics. There's some good ones.
Some of them
there.
are super
funny.
funny.
The TikTok is funny. And so, we just want to thank you for taking the opportunity.
Absolutely.
I've seen you at our business development events. I see you around, recovery is a team sport on all levels. We need to get away from this. It's all each treatment center for themselves, because that's not the case. We're just happy to have you on the show, and Pinnacle, being part of our team and working with you guys. And where can they find our numbers in their social media?
We're on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, all at Sanctuary Recovery Centers. And our admissions line is 480-309-9945.
9945. All right. So thank you, Tesleah, for being on the show and sharing your message. And we really appreciate it, and tune in for the next show.
See you next time.
Thank you so much.